Welcome back to the Pre-Vetted podcast, where we spotlight extraordinary people and remarkable talent reshaping our world. Today we're joined by Danielle Costa-Nakano. She's the Chief Product Officer at Grassroots Analytics. Danielle is a high-energy leader with a strong track record in building data products and scaling SaaS solutions for nonprofits and enterprise organizations. She has over a decade at NGP van and leadership roles at Bonterra and National Geographic Society, and she has shaped how technology supports fundraising, compliance, and social good. So we are going to explore her journey, lessons in leadership, and her vision for modernizing data and product strategy. Danielle, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Awesome. So can you tell us a little bit about your role at Grassroots Analytics?
Sure. I joined Grassroots Analytics in January of this year. My role is the Chief Product Officer, and I'm really helping this company move from being a data as a service company to a software as a service company. So right now we sell data, we rent data, we provide folks with data-oriented solutions, and we're moving into a space where we'd like to provide them with software solutions as well as data solutions. We're really thinking a lot about helping our industries modernize their infrastructure and move forward, do a bit of a leap into the AI generation.
Interesting. And what does going to software as a service entails?
At this point, with a data as a service company, there's a lot of invisible data being shared with folks, and it's hard for them to visualize, to see things, and they have to take the data back into their ecosystems that are kind of old, built in the early 2000s. So a lot of our customers are living with a third or half of their day being spent using imports, exports, a lot of Excel, Google Sheets, a lot of being stuck with a lot of different data sources, but the inability to bring them together in a really meaningful and powerful way for their workflows on the day-to-day and week-to-week. So a lot of what we want to do is help them do a lot of the tasks they have today, but in a more modern infrastructure that will free them from their time being spent doing basic data work or importing, exporting, or opening a bunch of sheets, and freeing them up to do a lot more of the high quality work that they really want to focus on.
Right. So it's qualitative data rather than just
It's
importing and exporting
quantitative as
data.
well as qualitative data that they're dealing with, but there's a lot of transactional-based stuff that is first order and helping them get organized and provide a more central data platform instead of 7, 8, 9, 10 tools and 20 sheets.
Right. I've been going through CSVs, many times, and it's a workhorse, but it's so limiting in so many ways.
And time-consuming. It's great for exploration
Yes.
at the beginning, but terrible to have a process built around.
Right. But I think it's the spreadsheet is a great way to start when you don't have a defined process. But as soon as you have a defined process, you need a much more matured solution.
Absolutely. So we're really looking forward to helping our customers sort of leap ahead with more modern infrastructure. We'll have save them time.
Right. And getting into data transformation and validation, it's a big part of that, right?
Sure. There's some aspect of that we're hoping to do for folks. A lot of what we think about with our central data platform is providing folks with the ability to use API connections to help move data in and out so that they're not dealing with spreadsheets and exports and all of that manual work. In addition to that, what we want to provide in this platform is analytics that help folks, instead of shooting darts in the dark, help them find the right person with the right message at the right time for the right ask.
Right. One thing that because nowadays AI, the term AI is hype, right? But I think people forget that AI come from the root is machine learning, which is basically managing tons and tons of data and being able to make sense of it, right?
Absolutely. Our current product that's a SaaS product is called Quiller. It is a AI first content creator. So for folks in the political and nonprofit markets, it will give them the ability to help generate really great content in their voice. It's really important for each organization to have their brand, their voice, and speak the language the way that they speak, the people that represent them, and helping create those first drafts, or taking something that maybe staff made as a draft for content creation, but needs a little bit of professional highlight to bring it up and zhuzh it up, if you will. So that's one of the things that we're doing with content creation. So this central data platform that I'm speaking about will take that as well as all of their qualitative data, and quantitative data, help them organize it and take action on it.
Right. Right. I think that that's a great use of AI, because what I've been learning is that we can use AI as the creative, but with our guidelines, right? We become the navigator, right? Where we want it to go, right? So
Yes.
providing, our own voice into the content, that's key.
Yes, definitely. We're big believers in, human in the loop, or you really taking AI and using it as a way to automate, to augment, and to assist with humans, but not to replace.
Right. Yeah. Augment and enhance. I like that term. Yeah. What excites you the most about being a chief product officer?
Well, Grassroots Analytics is just in a really special place. We're really excited about the problems we're looking to help our customers solve, and bringing a lot of maturity in terms of infrastructure to markets that have a lot of private equity and VC tech that was built originally in the early 2000s and has sort of languished and hasn't had proper investment. So we're just excited to help our customers. And over the last 6 months, we've been putting together an amazing technology team, including AI developers, as well as traditional data experts and front end full stack developers. And so moving forward into next year, we just have a ton of launches to get through and to help onboard customers to this new technology that's AI based, AI developed, and AI first.
Is there's any other use cases for grassroots analytics and Quiller that you haven't mentioned that would make sense to share with the audience?
Sure. Quiller is, like I said, a content creation tool. It will basically write letters. It will write text messages, emails, even if you need just a tagline or something to help you come up with big, bold things to stick on a big banner behind you. Quiller will absolutely, given the right inputs, telling it about your voice, what your topics are, what your red lines are you don't want to get into, has an opportunity to conversationally work with you back and forth to help you come up with the right content for whatever your needs are in the moment.
And what's the use case for grassroots analytics?
Well, Grassroots, as I mentioned, is a data provider. So we rent and sell a lot of data across the political and nonprofit markets. And so Quiller is another tool that helps the content creation. So it's a really strong complement to the data. And then as we go ahead and launch that newest product next year, we'll have a complete platform that sort of gives you access to see the data that you've rented or purchased in a new way, where it's highlighted and giving you a 360 of your data plus some insights from ours.
Interesting, interesting. So you work at other organizations like National Geographic and Bonterra.
Yes.
What did those experiences teach you?
Those were amazing experiences. First of all, at Bonterra, I was with them for over 20 years. I was a third hire at NGP Software before it became NGP Van, and before NGP Van spun off Every Action. So there was a long history of companies merging and then creating whole new companies out of mergers. In the last few years that I was at Bonterra, I had the opportunity to introduce data governance to the new organization that was really a merger of 6 smaller companies. So that was quite a feat in such a huge brand new organization. And I also got a chance to help productize predictive analytics in NGP software, part of the fundraising software for political customers. So that really prepared me for coming to GA here and doing the work that we're doing now with predictive analytics and putting them in products and helping them be more accessible to customers. On the National Geographic side, that was just a really amazing, unique opportunity to work for an outstanding impact organization. The National Geographic Society is actually opening a museum here in Washington, D.C. next year around the summertime. It'll be a digitally immersive museum. And so my role when I was there for 2 years was to help prepare their data for opening their digitally immersive museum. I got to work really closely around the grant making data, the fundraising data, all of the marketing and communications data. I helped purchase new platforms and bring online something called a customer data platform in a way to help them create experiences that would help connect people who were on the campus and going to the museum, as well as off campus and just engaging with National Geographic products, whether the website or something else.
Wow, that's amazing. I'm wondering what a digital immersive museum would look like, right? What that experience would be, right?
You've got to go to ngs.org and check it out.
Yes. So how your approach on building products that serves nonprofit and social good differs from other types of organizations?
It is interesting when you're a for-profit company and all of your customers are nonprofit. I think that you have to have a set of values that aligns well with your customers. So, being responsible with money and how you're taking their money to help build amazing things for them is really, really important. That's a real quality and value that you really have to bring to the table. But those types of organizations, they are producing change in the world. And what they're asking for is financial donations or contributions if they're a political organization in exchange for, your support for them to do the mission that they've set out to do. So they have a tall ask when they're going out and doing that. And so giving them the most efficient technology at the best possible price is, the most important part of that value proposition is respecting their time and their money and helping bring them along with the best possible tools.
Interesting. As a side note, I was talking with a founder. He's doing a for-profit social good enterprise or startup, right? And his position was that if he was a nonprofit, that raising funds would be a limiting factor for him to pursue his mission, right? He decided to instead go to a for-profit model, so that way he would just be able to focus more on the mission and use the revenue to
reinvest back to the customer. Yeah, that makes sense to me. That really does. But, your nonprofit customers, if you want to have those kinds of customers, they don't want to see you be too excessive with your parties and congratulations. It has to be right size.
I've been involved on some nonprofits, both as volunteer, as sometimes donations, but I haven't been inside one to know how that works.
Well, they really do vary tremendously. Most of the nonprofits in the world are just a small group of folks that often are volunteer-based, and that's the vast majority of the nonprofits that really exist out there. There are organizations like National Geographic Society or Greenpeace or Feeding America that are gigantic impact organizations that, curry the kind of funding that competes with many corporate organizations and LLCs in the world. So there's a huge variety of what the operational impact and the budgets can be. But, fundamentally, a nonprofit organization is looking to sustain themselves and to take in enough funding to, create impact in their community, whether that's the world or their local community. So it's a important proposition. And over the last few years, especially since it's been harder and harder for nonprofits to continue to grow year after year. They've been struggling since the pandemic in particular.
Right. But I think you're kind of answering this question. What do you think are the biggest challenges nonprofits are facing today, in general and in particular with data, right?
Yes. Well, today they're suffering, I think, along with corporate America, where especially over the last few months, it's been hard for businesses to plan. And so when they stop planning, they stop hiring, and then the job market can get a little slippery. And the more folks that are either unemployed or concerned about their finances, they're not donating as much. So this has been a particularly tough year. Short list of what's happening now. You had another part of your question.
I was wondering about the challenges you see in nonprofits in general, and then, because we're talking about data, I also asked about what challenges are nonprofit facing today related to data.
I think with data, there's a lot of opportunities. As I was mentioning earlier, they have a lot of data, they have a lot of tools, but they don't have a lot of modern infrastructure. So if everything that you buy is a tool that's not talking to the other tools that you've purchased, so if one of them is your CRM, one of them is your texting tool, one of them is your emailing tool, maybe another one helps you with call time, maybe if you're mid-sized or larger, you might need additional reporting needs. You now have 5, 6, 7, 8 tools that are doing something, but most of the people who are doing the jobs need to be in 2, 3, 4, 5 of those tools. So when they're not talking and they're not able to communicate well together and move the data, then humans end up becoming humanware instead of using software.
Right. And then the humans become the bottlenecks, right?
Yeah, that too.
Yes.
Exactly. So it's just a place where plenty of data, really needing better infrastructure or more modernized tools that are able to be more flexible and work with other tools, especially when you don't exactly know what it is, but having an API, that's a start.
Right. I don't know on nonprofits, but I've seen corporations also missing on the API side, right? They don't see that as something important, or it's an afterthought, right?
It's an afterthought. It's not part of the budget planning. It's not part of the contracting necessarily. So then they try to add it later and they don't know how to figure out how to charge for it or get additional funds so that, if there's a huge amount of egress going on, you're making sure you're covering what you need to cover to pay for your bills. Yeah, it's a problem that I think, especially before the end of this decade, it's time to solve them. We've got a lot of great technology now, and really, it's the focus to help our customers move beyond where they've been for the last 5, 10, 15 years, and really help them go twice as fast by eliminating a lot of moving and slowing down and being blind to a 360 picture of who their potential donors and prospects are.
Right. And what I've seen, what happened with APIs, I remember the case of Stripe. This was 10, 15 years ago, where they were like API first, almost data first, merchant gateway, right? And they took over the market because it was so easy to integrate it in so many applications, and it would solve the PCI compliance for startups. So I can see how that worked. And when I see, I work on many different organizations where they build APIs, internal APIs, but they don't build APIs to allow people to integrate their software as much, or as I said, it's an afterthought, right? So eventually that becomes an afterthought, and eventually the way that I've seen implementation lacks this idea of how can we leverage the API of this product to integrate with other products. They miss that, so the integration becomes challenging or difficult, which eventually kind of miss the point, right?
Yes, or they sometimes will build something that's really hard to work with because it's built around like a front end or what needs to be consumed by a front end, and it doesn't make as much sense when it's pure API. I'd say one other thing to add to that is I've had the opportunity to work for data products for many years now, and a data product is really taking the software development lifecycle and applying it to data, which means that you have to manage the whole life cycle. That means providing data contracts up front. What are you accountable to? What are you holding yourself to deliver, and how are you going to take that product and bring it into it when it's done, or when something new is coming along. So that's been a huge part of helping change how the struggle has been, but it's not universal. I was just actually at the CDO conference in Chicago. It was a CDO leadership conference. One of the main topics in the room was data governance. Data governance, we've been doing this forever. You can't really do data products without data governance. You can't build AI tooling on top of data without data governance. So, these are foundational steps that if we skip any of them, it really makes things long-term really hard to maintain.
Right, right. Because if you open your data too much without compliance, then you're exposing yourself for liability, well, the company, and data loss, which could be a big issue, right?
Absolutely. Those are legal and
Yes.
breach.
Yes. Yeah. I've seen projects where we would run the internal audits to make sure that it was compliant. And one thing that I noticed, a pattern that I noticed through different projects, is that the compliance is still within the code in a way that it's difficult to abstract. So if the compliance change, you have to dig into the code to actually see what's going on, right? So it was not a rule-based system, but it was more of a conditional system in the code, within the code, right? Which makes it difficult to
Brittle.
brittle. Yeah, that's a
Brittle.
good word. Yeah. So you mentioned something a little bit before about nonprofits being able to follow up with donors and being able to build a relationship, right? Which is an interesting use case for AI agents, right? Where they can detect patterns in people and then based on that, provide actionable insights, right?
Yes, those are some of the favorite terms we use in the world of nonprofit software and data, is really trying to cut down on everyone getting tons of emails and text messages from organizations or candidates that they don't know, never reached out to, but really trying to encourage organizations to build a conversation with folks and be able to reach out to folks that are interested in hearing about specific topics in the method in which they like to have communications done with them. That is a huge piece of modernizing the infrastructure and making the people that are delivering those experiences to potential donors and prospects, give them the tooling that they need to be able to achieve those goals without spending 2 days with a bunch of spreadsheets, but really having insights put on their dashboards in the morning so that they're able to make some quick decisions and action on where the best opportunities are every day.
Right, right. I mean, what I've seen happen there usually is because that becomes a CRM, right? But then this CRM becomes this huge monolithic thing that is the all-in solution, but it actually is not fulfilling.
Yeah, we've been thinking about that a lot, and I think that, what Grassroots is focused on is the thing that happens after the CRM. In fact, a lot of organizations end up with multiple CRMs because certain departments or teams, they use one thing, another group of people use another thing. And what GA is focused on is bring all your tools, no matter how many CRMs or donation forms or email tools or whatever you've got, bring them all to the table, and let's use APIs to go ahead and connect everything together so that you can see all your data, the core of it, in one place, be able to take strong, good actions because you have enough of the information that you need to help you make strong predictions on where the wins are.
Wow, that's subtle but powerful, because what you're describing is you're solving the CRM problem, right? By integrating
So if
multiple
you look at
CRMs.
post-CRM, the thing after post-CRMs, I'm
Right.
really focused on this being next generation where you're not trying to be everything to everybody in one place, but allow for connectivity enough in enough places that the most important elements that you've decided are important can be brought together in a way that then you can make predictions, take actions, and do that with the tools that are meant for it. So as much as it sounds like it's an all-in-one solution, it actually lets you connect to all your specialized tools. So you can use the best email, the best text messages, have 2 or 3 CRMs, whatever combination you're interested in.
Right. Right. Yeah. Most what you're describing is orchestration, right? Orchestration and integration.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Orchestration is definitely a way of using that terminology, an orchestration tool, 100%.
That's amazing. That's a very interesting approach.
Yeah, I'm really excited about how it can transform the nonprofit and political markets in particular. They have a lot of that schism fractured tool sets, and so it's it's been a mess for them for the past decade. They're ready for something new.
Right. Right. So you've led teams throughout acquisitions and transitions, right?
Yes.
What lessons did you learn from that?
Wow. Number 1 is the people are everything. If everybody walked out the door tomorrow, you'd be nowhere 100%. So never forget as a leader that, you can buy the tools, you can buy the resources, but when you don't have the people, you've lost all the magic. So every day, I'm always thankful when I walk in the door in the morning to the moment that I leave for all the people that are there and their focus and their hard work. And I believe that a huge part of each organization's obligation to every employee is to forge a relationship around what are you looking out of what do you need out of this experience? What are you looking for out of this experience? So each year that I take each one of my employees, I try to spend time saying, what experiences do we need to make sure you get to have this year so that you're growing and that your commitment to the organization and our commitment to you, we're able to fulfill that. I find that it really helps folks want to work that extra mile, do that extra thing when they know that you're making sure that they get what they need for their growth as well. So I'm people first 100%. Other than that, I have really come to appreciate how important as technology changes that the roles and the specialties of groups of people, especially when you're working in technology, it's a matrix. Most of the time, if you're on a team and you're developing a product, you have folks that maybe are architects, whether that's their title or not. You have team leads that are out there leading small groups, sometimes multiple groups of folks in developing and engineering. You have product managers, you have user experience folks. Station's big enough, you've got your DevOps. You hopefully have QA. Whether they're automating or doing it manually, you've got some QA folks in the mix. So when you bring all of these folks together, whether it's 3, 4, 5, 6, 10, 13 teams, or maybe just one, that is a huge cross-section of skills that it takes to make something out of nothing. And I'm always just in awe of bringing together those different skill sets, and helping folks come together with a set of ground rules that, is evolving. Like over the last 9 months at GA, we've been putting together a software development lifecycle that's evolved a lot since the first day that I got here. But now we're, running smooth with over 20 people actively working on a brand new product. That wasn't happening before I got here. It was a different world. So it's amazing what you can do with people. And I think that the most important part of any initiative is skills and abilities and bringing together folks and showing them a lot of respect.
Wow, that's amazing. I told you before we start the episode, I'm a software engineer. So I've been mostly thinking the collaboration from that point. But then I start wearing multiple hats as founder, as product owner, as technical leader, and so on and so forth. And throughout the years, I've been appreciating more and more each of the roles involved in the process of building software. And it's interesting you mentioned QAs because that was one of the roles that I didn't have the appreciation that I have now, right? Before, right? And when I started learning the impact that they have in the organization, right? And the same with user experience or designers, how much they can impact on the final product if their voice is listened, right? So yes, very interesting take. People first.
Yeah, definitely. I'm glad to hear that you've come to appreciate the QA folks. They really can be your internal power users and really help you think around corners. Even if you can't crush every possible bug they can think of, and they can definitely help you prepare for sealing some of the holes and being ready to take on some of the more complicated use cases that are coming your way.
And we used to joke or tease each other that they were against the developers, right? Because they're like looking for what you actually did wrong, right? We're kind of teasing, but there was some truth into that, right? That this was this conflicting, roles. But then I was able to work towards a change on that point of view with me and my team, right? Both on the development side and the QA team, where we work together building test plans before we will build a feature. That way, instead of becoming I wouldn't say enemy, but an opponent, right, became an ally, because now we would agree, okay, what are the use cases that are more valuable for the user, right? Which is the user is we're serving the user, right? But when you're in a bigger organization, you kind of lose track of that, right? So we came to that first conclusion, and then based on that, we would build a test plan prioritized based on effort to automate and impact to the user. And that way we were able to agree where do we draw the line? How much time do we invest on automating versus not, right? And there was, of course, a lot of debate, because the QA team would prefer everything, but then we have to, we had trade-offs of resources and bandwidth, right? So it was a very interesting experience for me. Yeah.
I'm glad you brought that up. We've actually just started introducing some QA scripts around here. We've been in development for about 4 months. We have enough of our foundation on this newer product. So that's just been going on here for the last few months. And we try to think of it, instead of it being developers against QA, we try to think of it as all of us are battle ready for production. Battle ready for production for the customer.
Right. And we start doing this thing of, can we get a bug-free feature, which is, there's always going to be little bugs here and there, but as close as possible, right? So if we had a bug, then the whole team failed on that level of quality, and then we'll go back and figure out, okay, what did we miss? Because if we're putting the test cases first, then we shouldn't have bugs, right? Or I mean, there were functional bugs, there were bugs on the UI, right, or the UX. But basically, if we can allow the user to do what they need to do, what's in it for the user, then we would not consider that failure, right? But something we need to polish, right?
Yeah.
And something that became very important for us is that we could trust the continuous integration server, right? Because if it's green, but we don't trust it, then, the value for that diminished.
I think the systems are the most important thing. In order to build software today, you've got to have continuous integration, and you've got to absolutely trust that when it's green, 100%. It's the only way to go fast enough.
Yes. And so we had projects where we had an unreliable green flag. So what we did is we disable all the tests. We start from scratch, right? And then we'll start adding again, right? Because you need a solid foundation to move faster, right? Yeah. Very interesting. And what are your thoughts on the importance of the UX team? What do you think the UX team brings to the process?
I think UX is, I don't want to say the most important, but if you don't do UX, you're going to really struggle with product market fit. You're going to really struggle with the ability of making sure that you've solved the problem in a way that the users are experiencing it. There's so much product management that is focusing on the right problem to solve, finding an affordable problem we can solve, finding a solution that is affordable, without UX to either validate the solution or to actually design the solution. At least one, but probably both of those are really going to be the best way to ensure that you have a chance at product market fit and, really having a solution that's going to delight your customers.
Right.
GA has spent a lot of time this year making sure that we've made massive investments in user experience. We've made sure that we have a great team. We have a director, a senior, we even have a junior on the team that's moving up into a mid-level soon. And it's really been one of the best investments that every single staffer that works at this company has been able to say, wow, before we had that team and where we are now, heads and shoulders different in the outcome. And as we have gotten closer to launching our newest product, the feedback on pre-release has been absolutely phenomenal when it comes to taking something that was hard to see in the past and making it easy to understand and comprehend in milliseconds.
Completely agree. Yes, the we were talking about APIs being an afterthought, and I had that same approach with design, right? User experience as an afterthought, right? But then I was able to learn more appreciation towards that role and help change the development process towards UX first, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. At GA, we end up actually doing UX design and research while we have technical feasibility research at the same time. So we're really trying to make sure that the stories of the problems we're solving, we are technically with the tech team, making sure that we're designing for a solution that everybody's really going to be able to work on. So we try to do that simultaneously. The designs become high level and get really detailed as we work with our technical friends to make sure that they're still feasible and viable for implementing.
Right, right. I think that the product requirement documents are, although they have some role, right? But I feel that they are inefficient to share the requirements.
We don't do a formal PRD here. We've found that engineers, if you write documents that are too big and too extraneous, they won't get read. So there's like a sweet spot in sizing and making the information available in a way that the team is able to consume during certain pieces of the software development lifecycle. So we really start with a business case and a very high level super story. We call it a super story. Once we have buy-in there that that's the right set of problems we want to solve, we then go to the next level where we do very high-level user stories around, who are we solving exact problems for, and then really engage the design team and the tech team around what solutions could this be, and constantly use the trio of the product manager, the UX designer, as well as the tech lead to make sure that we're headed down in this right direction together with our arms linked.
Interesting. I was going to share that we did some development on storytelling because we started doing a product requirements document and became this big long document that nobody would ever read. So even if you put a lot of details there, people would not read it, and then what's the point, right? And then there was a lot of friction because it was boring, I would say, to read. And when we shifted towards, it was a transition, of course, but when we shifted towards storytelling, then the product owner and the UX will work together on building the presentation of the new feature, and they will polish a lot of the details of the behavior, expected behavior, right? And because the UX had a lot of access to the internals of how things were built, then he would act a little bit of the advocating for what was possible within the components that we had available, right? And then what happened is that instead of becoming a boring meeting, everybody was happy to go to those meetings, right? Because now it was a story, right? Now we have a window of how the user feels and why he needs this feature, right? So it was a very interesting experience to go through that because we're able to not only make it fun, but also make it efficient and finally being able to build it faster, right?
Yeah, that sounds like a great process, similar to what we're doing at GA.
Interesting. I had a guest that was talking about using AI to vibe code to ask the product managers to build prototypes instead of mockups or documents, right? And they were moving towards doing that as a new requirement in the role of product owners in the age of AI. What are your thoughts about that?
We have done some prototyping here. We've used Vercel's V0. The product managers will often do that at the very beginning of a brand new concept. It lets them vibe code out something that is not the solution we're going to build, but it really helps everybody on the UX, product, and the tech team get on the same page about what it could be, a very basic rudimentary version of what something could be. So we've also used a lot of Figma's AI prototyping tool as well. So if we're further down the road and we're really battling a really complicated concept, our UX folks have also been using some of the prototyping tools there that will actually get them a working prototype using some AI as well. And then in addition to that, our development team is using Claude Code to help assist as well.
Right. Right. I think that vibe coding has a great fit for this use case, especially if what you're trying to do is it lowers the bar for a non-technical product manager to build something without the dependency of an engineer, right?
Right. But it's usually not good enough to sell, but it's great to get an idea and everybody on the same page about the basics of an idea. And that's what we have found. Whatever it builds, the code isn't the best from those tools. So, we don't necessarily find it to be highly reusable, but it's really been great for us to get ideas across different teams, get people on the same page, figure out, what do we like about this? What do we want to keep intellectually versus, what's not working? And it helps us spin around iterations of ideas a lot faster than waiting for somebody to do a full Figma. Is interactive, perhaps, that you can vibe code a lot faster than a proper design with its interactions built in. So it can be a really good get on the same page tool, but we haven't found in any of the tools that I just mentioned that they're prime time ready. They don't produce they may produce a little piece of something that you can copy in a section of code and reuse it, but that's about it.
Yes, I completely agree. I was going to share that insight. Yeah, the vibe coding is great to give a non-technical person to build a prototype, right? Maybe you can show it to users to see how that interaction works, right? But that's about it, right? After that, the AI agents that are building this code doesn't understand how to build abstractions, which is something that we humans can do better. So it's great for that, for getting on the same page and then pretty much dispose it right after that, right?
Yeah.
And then the developers can build something that is scalable, that it's where they can build abstractions and find patterns that otherwise wouldn't.
And reusable components. I find that a lot of the prototyping tools, they don't reuse components. It's messy. It makes messy code.
Right.
Yeah. But the usefulness of them is definitely quick getting on the same page, and it's game changing for teams, especially with information architecture. I think that's one of the areas that it can really help with real users and usability testing, help you understand if you have a good idea.
Right. In particular, with data, you have such complex use cases, right, that are difficult for any generic agent to understand and embrace. Right?
Yep. All of it needs some form of training.
Right. And I have the same issue with agents that are building mockups, that they're good enough for prototypes, but they one of the things that I also appreciate about the UX designers is that they understand how to organize and locate the buttons and the functions, and they build a hierarchy of functions and buttons and locations based on how the user would use this application, right? And that's something that, again, the AI cannot do.
Yet, at least.
Yes. I mean, it's evolving very fast, so maybe in the future, but not right now. Yeah, probably by the time we publish this episode, it's going to be able to. No, I'm just joking. So, what is the advice? What advice would you give to a younger self, somebody that is getting into product ownership and And
Well, anybody interested in data, I would encourage them to explore that and stick with it. I became interested in data early on. I have a degree in math. When I started working in computers and software, staying focused on data, figuring out how to build interfaces that are data driven, with software development, AI, data science. I mean, the world is endless. Data is a commoditized asset. So my advice to any young person is if you have any interest in data, go deep, keep exploring, don't stop. There's just so many places and ways to focus on it. Some folks, are great with contract and things like that. There's risk. There's securing data. Some people want to build things. They're creators and they're creative. There's interfaces. There's building APIs. There's so many different skills around data that there's something for everybody.
amazing. Before we wrap it up, Danielle, any final insights or comments?
I just am really appreciative of the opportunity to speak to you today. I haven't had a chance to do this in a while, and I've just really enjoyed the conversation.
Awesome. I'm truly grateful for having you here today. I think we learned a lot about data and product ownership, and I had an amazing time talking with you. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Take care.
Take care.
Bye-bye.